Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Well, today's interview, I believe everyone knows, is with Sameh El Dahan. He should be joining us very soon. For you that don't actually know it, tomorrow we will talk with Philip Whitesap. It's been a mistake in my overview, so we have Philip tomorrow. And at night we have Rodrigo Chaves Nunes, that's a Brazilian guy. On Saturday we'll have Felipe Amaral, also Brazilian. And then on Sunday we'll have Jan Simmons, okay? So that's a new schedule for the week. I'll send a message to Sameh. In any case, just to let you all know, I don't have my laptop and my notebook with me today. So if you send a message through WhatsApp, it's going to be a hard one to read. But you can always send a question on the question mark right here. So we can try to organize it so we can answer all the questions by the end of the live, okay? Well, we'll wait a little while for Sameh to join us. If he has already done it, please let me know, Sameh. Send like a wave or a hi, and then we can start. What else? Well, tomorrow it's at 8 p.m. CET time, Central European time, and at 3 o'clock here in Brazil. On Saturday, it's, I believe, 11 p.m. in Europe and 6 p.m. here in Brazil. On Sunday, it's again 3 p.m., 8 p.m., okay? Let's see if he has joined us. I don't believe he does. He did. Let's see what's going on. Sakari questions here. Nope, not yet. Yep. He just joined in. So I can actually invite him now to the question to join me, okay? There we go. Fantastic.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
I made it.
Yep, you did it. Say it's not as hard as it looks.
Well, I don't know Instagram a lot, so I was just wondering how that all worked, but it actually worked out okay.
Very good. Well, first of all, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. It's a pleasure to have you with me.
It's my pleasure to be here, actually. Thank you very much for having me today.
Very good. Well, Sameh, I believe first things first. And today my first question is, where are you exactly right now?
I'm actually in my home stables in Northern Ireland, in Templepatrick. So I've been locked down here for the last 2.5 months, which is something very, very new for me. You know it, with horses, you're always on the road. So yeah, it's been different for us, but we're quite enjoying it, actually.
Very good. And what did you focus yourself on this time at home?
Well, to be honest, when you're on the road all the time, you know, horses are on lorries, they arrive at the show, you're always between two minds to keep them fresh and not do too much with them on the flat and all these kind of things. So you kind of lose basics along the road. So I think we really use this time to get back to basics, keep the horses fresh in the mind, keep them happy, change scenery for them. Like they hack, they go into the sand arena, they go into the grass arena, they go to the gallops, they're in the fields mostly every night. So I think it's quite important now to use that time to keep them fresh in the mind and keep them happy, as you would simply say it.
Very good. Well, okay, then now go back to your life and then how's it all started? So the question is kind of where, why, and how did you start riding?
Oh, yeah, that takes me a while back. I started riding since I was a 5-year-old, but I wasn't born into a family of show jumpers. My mom is a veterinarian doctor that specializes in zoonoses. My dad is a mechanical engineer. Okay, they've done sports all their lives, but not on a professional level. So for us, it was quite obviously a new thing. My cousins used to ride at the time. They're older than my brother and myself. So they advised my parents to go and train for show jumping. And that's how it started, basically. I went with my brother, who's 4 years older than me. And I started in my hometown in Cairo, in a place called El Zahra, which is a quite popular Arab horses breeding place. It's basically for pure Arab breeds. So yeah, I used to ride there with a late general called Yusuf Warab, who taught me a lot at a young age. And yeah, since then I've been riding.
Oh, fantastic. How was this sport, or how was and how is the sport in the Middle East? I believe it's a little bit different than what we have in Europe today.
Well, it's very different because in our culture, sports is not necessarily a career. You know, in Egypt, for instance, where I come from, you go through school and then you go through university and you study, and then your sport is always a hobby, not a sport, not a career in any way. So it's not easy for us really to drop school and take a sport as a profession. So for me to do that was quite a new thing in Egypt. But I still studied. I still finished my studies. I finished university. I studied medicine. I have a bachelor's degree in surgery and medicine. But in the middle of my studying, I decided I want to take this as a profession, and I want to travel abroad. I was lucky as well. I got a lot of help from different people in my career and different trainers. And one of them is a good friend of mine, and he's actually now also one of Egypt international riders, Ala Maisara. He was always dreaming of going abroad and pursuing this professionally, and I think I took that a little bit from him and tried to achieve it myself. So it's not easy for us really in Egypt because, like I said, you don't come from the culture is completely different. So it's really a choice, not that you're born into a stable and you see your father and your mother doing it, and you see your siblings or whatever. It's really a sport of choice. And I did many sports as a young kid. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played tennis, squash, all kind of sports, and I just stuck to show jumping.
Oh, very good. Well, I asked this question because here in Brazil, we do have a nice sport. The show jumping is going okay. Yeah. But it's really, really different from what we got in Europe. Because in Europe, the big shows are held in nice places. Yeah. But you don't actually have that many horse clubs. And in Brazil, most of the horses are in these big clubs. And the sport goes around these big clubs. There's not many home stables, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Well, it's exactly a little bit the same in Egypt, but you guys in Brazil also have a legend like Nilson Pessoa, and then after that, Rodrigo, Olympic medals, so many 5-star Grand Prix wins, Nations Cups. So the sport is, although maybe not as Europe, but still quite big. In Egypt, it's quite small. It's big in Egypt, but it's small because you can't really travel abroad. Your shows are very limited. But to be fair, I was, I trained in Egypt. Most of my career was in Egypt until I traveled when I was 26 years old. Okay. So I've done most of my riding time in Egypt. I've traveled abroad every summer, maybe for a few months here and there with the Egyptian team as a junior, all that. But my major core training was at home in Egypt. So although it's small, but it's quite big in the sense of, if you look around, there's so many good Egyptian riders with a lot of feeling. And that doesn't come from nothing. It comes from good structure, good basics. And I was lucky to get that all in Egypt when I was living there. Amazing. So, well, back to the beginning. So you start riding in this Arab, on purple Arabians? No, on blood. Yeah, well, they're mixed breeds. I didn't ride ponies. Never sat on a pony until I came here. I actually sat on one of the kids' ponies just to work the pony for Ariel, one of Joanne's kids. So that was my first time ever to sit on a pony. But I've never, when I was started riding, I never sat on a pony. We have like mixed breeds, which is thoroughbred mixed with Arab breeds. Not really show jumpers as such, but they're quite smart horses, quite pretty looking, very nice models of horses. So I started riding those. And I remember, that was obviously my parents' story. When the first time I went to the riding club with my brother, like I said, I was 5 and I was quite tiny. And the general at the time said, I don't think he can ride. He's quite small. And then obviously, as a kid, when you see horses and everybody riding, you get a little bit upset. And he said, okay, maybe put him on this horse on the lunge. And yeah, since then I've been in the saddle. Fantastic. Do you remember your first horse, the first horse you got from your parents?
The first horse I started buying horse. My parents bought me my first horse when I was 11 years old. Whenever I started riding, I was from 5 till 9. I never jumped a jump. I was that general that I was telling you about. He was always very fanatic about basics, position, how to ride a horse, horsemanship, how to walk a horse, all kind of stable management as well as riding, but I never jumped a pole. And then after that, I moved from that place to the police academy, even though I was a civilian, but they still take civilians to ride there as kids. And I was trained there by a general called Ayman Fahmy, who was like a second father to me. And he kind of adopted me in the sport. And he started giving me some of his horses to ride from the police. And I started jumping. And then as an 11-year-old, my cousin was in Germany looking at horses. Like I said, they were riding themselves. And then they bought my first horse from Germany. It was called Golden Charms.
Oh, very good.
Big horse for a very small person.
But it happens.
It happens. And actually for me, you learn a lot because you ride different horses from small Arab or mixed breed, Egyptian breed to foreign breed or German breed or Belgian breed. You just learn a lot because you ride different kind of horses with different types. And I think at the young age, when you do that, you get acquainted quite easily when you ride horses now of different types.
Very good. Well, did you have much success while you jumped to the basic categories like juniors, young riders, pre-juniors? How was your career into developing them?
Well, I was, as a junior, my first show, I actually won the class. Okay, it was like, I think in 60 or 70 centimeter class, but that was my first show and I won it. And I think that's when it all clicked, because by nature, I'm quite a competitive person. I get accused a lot by that. So I am quite a competitive person, not only in show jumping, everything. And that's, I think it's a type of my personality. So yeah, that was my first show, and as a junior, I was quite successful in my junior years. I traveled a lot with the Egyptian team to Europe, was mostly Holland, and then my first international show was in France in Lutuke, the junior classes, and again, I won the first day. I was fifth the second day, and in the final, I had a fence down. I remember quite clearly because that was obviously a very big thing for me. And so as a junior, I was quite successful in that sense. And then when after my junior years, there was a little bit of a drop, lack of horsepower, lack of guidance. As a young rider, you get a little bit lost. You're looking at other riders that are jumping bigger classes, and you're kind of saying, I should have been doing this, that, the other. But actually, for me, it all ended up for myself in a better way, because maybe I did not jump bigger classes as soon as other riders, but when I started jumping bigger classes, I was quite successful straight away. And I think it's important. A lot of people think, I go and jump the biggest classes and have a few fences down or whatever, that's okay. But in my brains, that's not okay. If I want to jump a bigger class, I want to be ready, and I want to have a ready horse to do it. So when I'm actually jumping there, I'm performing, not just filling the numbers, So that's basically my mindset, and I'm very lucky because the people that I work with, Joanne Sloan Allen and the team, they have the same mentality. Yep. So it also helps that the people that are working with you kind of push you and in the right direction and in the direction that you want to go towards.
All right. Well, I might be mistaken, but I believe you had quite a famous horse back in the time. That's called Gazelle.
Yeah. It's true. It's a horse for me that I think about a lot. It's a mare that I loved, actually. I really loved that mare. She was a stunning gray mare, and she was purchased by the police as, I would say, a 3-year-old, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2. And as soon as she arrived into the stable, you can see that she's a jewel of a horse. I didn't take the ride on her straight away. She was produced by different riders. General Ahmed Al-Sawaf, who is also one of the very famous riders in Egypt. He produced her as a young horse. And then after he retired, she was given to a friend of mine that rode her for a few months. And then he kind of disappeared. He does that sometimes, and I took over his horses, which was good for me, you know. Like he's one of my best friends actually, but he kind of disappears. If you know him, that's his habit. He's there, and suddenly he's not for a few months, and then he comes back. So I got the ride on the mare for then, and yeah, she's been a star for me. I think she made my career at home. One of the most successful horses I've ever rode in Egypt, and I jumped with her my first Grand Prix. I was placed with her straight away. Yeah, it's a horse that made me happy. I really love that. I really love that horse.
Awesome. Well, after a while, when you were 26, you decided to move to Europe. How was the beginning? Where did you land? And how come you end up in Sycamore Stables with Joanne?
Well, it all comes back to Cian O'Connor. Cian used to train an Egyptian friend of mine, Ahmed Tolba. He used to be based at his stables. And Ahmed used to bring him to Egypt for some clinics to help him with his horses and also give a clinic to a few of the Egyptian riders. So I rode with him in one of the clinics, and I liked the way he trained. He also liked the way I ride. So we had a chat at the end of the clinic, and we discussed a little bit of things that he would like me to work with him at Carlswood, come and train for a month. And then the plan was that he sends me horses to Egypt to ride, and then we can sell them or produce them to go back to him to Europe or something in those lines. So I went to Carlswood in end of 2010. I stayed at Cian's place. He was very hospitable. Him and his, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, Ruth, they were very hospitable to me. They looked after me really well. And I rode there for a month. And then the plan was to meet him at the Sunshine Tour and ride some of his horses in the beginning of 2011. So a little bit of change of plans. I was meant to take actually my horses from Egypt to the Arab League in the beginning of 2011. So I rang Cian and I said, I won't be able because I have the opportunity to take my horses to the Emirates and jump the World Cup qualifier shows there. And he was obviously quite understanding. And then the day that the horses were traveling to the Emirates, we got a phone call that horses cannot leave Egypt to the Emirates because of quarantine issues. So my horses wouldn't be able to make it to there. And then a few weeks later, the revolution happened in Egypt. If you heard about it, 2011, there was a big revolution, big ousting of the president, and so many things. And there was a lot of trouble in Egypt at the time. And then I got a phone call from Cian, obviously, because we were always in touch. And he said, there's this lady, Joanne Sloan Allen. She's going to the Sunshine Tour with 7 horses, if I'm not mistaken. Her rider broke his arm at the time, so her horses are on the way, but she doesn't have a rider. Would you do the job? They're young horses, but she's a really, really nice woman, and I'll be there. So if you need anything, I'll also look after you. So I said, I'll think about it, and then 5 minutes later, I rang him back. I said, there's nothing really to think about. I can't go and ride my horses because you're obviously with the troubles and everything. So I said, I'll do it. And then Joanne rang me up on the phone just to obviously chat with me and see, to tell me what's the story of her horses and whatever. And to be honest, as soon as she was on the phone to me, she was as if she knew me like 10 years ago. She was very friendly. We talked as if we knew each other. We had a good vibe already from the phone call. And then that was my, agreement that I'm going to travel to Europe and meet her horses in Sunshine Tour.
And then it's all began.
Well, to be honest, the first week was a little bit of an iffy week, because
oh really?
Yeah, it was really iffy. Joanne's plan was that she's gonna meet me a week later from my arrival to the Sunshine Tour. She was skiing wherever in Austria or France or somewhere, and she was meant then to come a week later. So anyway, I arrived there, and the horses were 2 5-year-olds. Zorro was a 7-year-old. Pepper Pot was a 9-year-old, and then there was Chicane, who was coming out of a rehab, so it was just hacking, and 2 other mares, Rodeo, and I can't even remember the last one. Maybe 6 horses. Anyways, so the 5-year-olds I rode the first day. They were so green, JC. You have no idea. They were really, really green. And I was thinking to myself, I said, okay, I'm in trouble here. One horse I couldn't even get to canter, And then we went to the clear round she sent the yard manager at the time. She sent him with the horses. So we went to the clear round the first day, and I jumped those horses on the grass ring in the very bottom arena in Sunshine Tour.
Yep.
And the poles were flying everywhere. They were
God.
everywhere. The horses were so spooky, and it was just chaos. And I remember the next day, whenever I was going back to the clear round, you know, the arena party that stay there to put the jumps up.
Yep.
When they saw me, they were like, "Oh my God, all the poles will be down again," because they have to put the poles back on the thing, you know. But actually, they were really good. They actually didn't knock a jump. Obviously, they knocked a lot the day before. But at least they were smart horses. As soon as they got a little bit what they meant to do, they've done it. And then, since the shows began, they've been fantastic. You know, those 5-year-olds. Zora was always a star since I rode her from day one. She was really, really smart. She knew what she was doing. Pepper also was a good horse, and she's been very, very good to me in later years. So yeah, it's just the beginning was a little bit like, this is maybe a little bit too much. But then everything worked out really well. And then Joanne came, and like I said, the connection there was very, very good. We chatted a little bit along the weeks of Sunshine Tour, and we agreed on a few things. And here we are 10 years later now, or 9.5 years later. Now I'm talking to you.
Very good. Well, one of the questions that I'm usually asked is the highlight of your career. I have one in my mind that it might be it, but still.
I think it is it without even, without even thinking. I think it is it. For sure, it's the Rolex Grand Slam in Spruce Meadows. That day, it gets me through many days of my career. Yeah, there's Zoro's second last jump, going to the last jump in the jump off. So yeah, it's this day or this moment gets me by so many down days, because with show jumping you get a lot of down days. You get a fence down, or you don't have the result that you would have liked. But this day just gets me through a lot.
Can you walk us through a little bit of what was this Grand Prix in Spruce Meadows? Because Zoro is not a big mare.
No.
She is tough.
She's a big heart.
She's a big heart. She's amazing.
Big heart.
But
that's it.
Spruce Meadows, out of everyone that I've interviewed so far, whenever I ask what was the hardest course you ever jumped in your life,
Meadows.
All of them like,
Spruce Meadows Masters. There's no question. Yeah.
Some of them in Spruce Meadows. Walk us through a little bit of that day. How was to you relieve it?
Well, it's I've done the Masters a few years. That was my third time in the Masters, and I always recall the year before, because I was also clear in the first round of the Masters, and it obviously was for me the biggest. That at the time was the biggest achievement of my career, to jump a clear round in the first round of the Grand Prix. But I know that I let my concentration and my focus go in the second round, and that hurt me. I had 3 jumps down in the second round, and it wasn't because I had anything but misconcentration, misfocus, didn't make a good plan for the second round. So when I went the year after, Zoro was a year older. We had a few good wins behind our belt, which obviously gets the confidence higher. And when you're on a high, you're riding with a lot more confidence. So when I jumped clear the first round on this year, on the second year, it was like, right, this is time to really focus. This is time to put everything aside, mobile phones, anything. Just focus on your horse. Joanna and myself walked the course already, the second round course already in the morning once, just to have an idea where we're going. And then as soon as the second round was open to walk, we went in again, quickly walked it together, made a very, very good plan for Zoro. And it paid off. It's just, Zoro for me is the closest thing to a human being. She's so smart. She's one of, if she can talk, she would be if she's a human being, she'd be a genius. She's so smart with everything. She senses everything. She knows what's going on around her. If you go in the morning with a hoof pick, you don't have to go down to lift her leg. She lifts left leg, left hind, right hind. That's how she is. Honestly, you just go in with the hoof pick and she does everything for you. So she's the closest. She's so smart, and I think that what makes her way above so many other horses is her mentality. She always wants to shine. As a 7-year-old, when I first rode her, I knew she was a really smart horse. But to achieve what she's achieved is beyond belief. Because when you see her, she's a small mare, and she jumps. She gives 100% from 1.10 to 1.60, exactly the same. So you wouldn't, like, you always, when you're looking at her from the floor, you think when she jumps 130, oh, she's a 130 horse. When she jumps 140, she's a 140 horse. But because I rode her, and also Joanne rode her, we always had this belief that when you put her to the test, what she will try. She will never give up, and she will always try. And I think she proved it at the biggest stage in the world. And yeah, when you have a horse like Zora underneath you, you feel like you can do anything. You can achieve anything. And I'm not only privileged, I'm very, very, very lucky to have a horse like her, that I can say that one day in my career, I can go back and say, I rode a fantastic horse, Suma Zora.
Very good. She is quite something. Another horse that was quite successful, and I believe you jumped the World Cup final in Stockenbosch a couple of years ago. It's Pepper Pot, or
WKD Pepper Pot. That's right. Yeah. She was my introduction to the top sport. This horse was if you don't mind me saying about, but she took my shit in top sport, because she was such a brave mare. Also very smart. She's Irish bred. Joanne rode her as a young horse until she was 9. She did a fantastic job producing her. This mare also does not give up. She would go through fire for her rider, and she's done a lot of good things for me. And I came to Europe 2011. The biggest I jumped was the 3-star Grand Prix. We qualified for the World Cup finals through the Arab League. And then I jumped the World Cup finals in 2012 in Sertogenbosch. The biggest I've jumped was a 3-star Grand Prix. And she went in, and there was one day, I remember quite well, there was only 2 clear rounds. It was Carlina from P.S. Schwitzer and Montebellini at the time from Philip Weissach. And she was a fence down. But it wasn't a fence down, it was basically a crash. It was triple combination, it was vertical, oxer, vertical. Everybody that in this course had, if they had a fence down, it's the oxer. They all had the back rail of the oxer. So Pepper jumped the vertical. She knew in her brains she wouldn't be able to really jump that oxer, so she basically went through it. And her and I kicking just to go over the last vertical. And she finished on 4 faults, and I was 7th the day because there wasn't, as I said, many clear rounds.
Many clears.
So it was, at the time, it was, oh my God, I was one fence down in the World Cup finals. But as you get into top sport, your expectations and your what do you want is a lot more. So next time I'm in the World Cup finals, I would like to be at the top end of the on the last day.
Very good. Well, you said 2 things at this time. One of them, of course, you said that both mares, they were really smart. Mm-hmm. Do you think is that one of the most important qualities on a horse to be a top horse?
Horses are individuals, in my opinion. And again, I learned, like I always say, I learned a lot from Joanne, because she's such a really good horsewoman. She really understands horses. I always rode different horses by their way. I never stick to a way of me. I always try to adapt with the horses that I ride. So for me, they have to be smart. They don't have to be all the scope. They have to be smart, as in careful. They have to understand what the riders want for them. They have to have I have to have a connection with them. So I think horses are individual. Pepper is completely different than Zorro, for instance. Gazella was again different than them too. Another horse I won the national championship at home in Egypt was called Cairo Boy. He was completely different. So, horses for me they are what they are, but every horse wants to be the best he can or she can, in my opinion. And that's what I always try to achieve from the horses. Not every horse is a Hickstead. Not every horse is an Explosion or a Clooney or Zorro. Not every horse is like this, but every horse has a good thing. And my job as a rider is to try to bring that to light, bring their best thing to light. So that's basically my mentality when I ride a horse. I never ride a horse thinking they're not good enough or they're not going to get me there or whatever. I always ride the horses with the best that I believe in them. And once you do that, in my opinion, I think they believe in you and start giving their best, which whatever it is good enough.
Very well. But if you're going to try a horse, what is the feature that you look for?
They have to be careful. They have to be careful. Every other thing I think you can work with. A little bit mouthy or a little bit difficult or hectic or this you can work with. If they're not all the scope, when you give them confidence, they want to try for the rider, but they have to be careful. That's what I always look whenever I try horses or even our younger horses here. You always see if they want to be careful. What's their reaction if they touch a little jump? How will they react? Things like this. The rest comes as you go. If you give them confidence along their younger years, you get somewhere with them as an older horse. Simple example is Zorro. Joanne bought her as a foal. Her and some other friends of hers produced her as a young horse till she was 7. Then Joanne and I rode her from 7 on. And like I said, in her younger years, you would never think, if you're looking at her from the floor, she will jump those bigger classes. But because she was produced in the right way, and you didn't take everything from her as a young horse, you just nursed her into classes, and you never made her think that anything is too big for her, she can't do it. When they're 9 and then 10, 11, 12, 13, they give you their best. So I think in what we do here at the stables and Sycamore Stables here is just try to give horses time. We never try to overjump them as young horses or throw them in big classes. It's mostly about producing them that they're comfortable. And then when they're ready to hit the ground running as an 8-year-old and above, that's when we try to test them and put them to the bigger tests.
Fantastic. On the other side of the coin, to say like that, what do you believe is the most important quality for a rider to have, and what is your best quality as a rider?
I think sympathy, to be sympathetic with the horses. You go to a lot of shows or a lot of places and you find a lot of aggression with the horses, and it just upsets me. And actually, when Zorro is a very interesting horse in this. So if I'm riding Zorro against somebody really professional, good rider, riding in a good way, and their horses are relaxed, she canters towards them, no problems. Doesn't even flinch, her ears are forward, no problem. See, if she sees a horse that is a bit tense coming towards her, or the rider is putting too much aggression and she feels that, she would spin and go the other way and run away from them, and you feel it already in her body. So I think that's why I think her and I kind of connect really, because I don't like aggression with horses, and she doesn't like aggressive horses or aggressive riding coming towards her. So sympathy, I think, is very important, and feeling, let your feeling help you instead of being too mathematical about things. And it's horses, they're living souls. They have their own minds, they have their own, their own moods, characters. Every horse is different, as I said. So you have to have an open mind when you ride horses to that.
Absolutely, very good. I asked you about the highlight of your career on the good side, but as you said, this sport is not made of many good days. They are good. They might not be so good, but from time to time we have a really, really bad day. What was the worst moment of your career so far, or the hardest, to be honest?
The hardest would have been actually the second round of Spruce Meadows the year before in 2017, because I think I let myself down that day, and I let my horse down, I let my team down. And as a rider, I know you get most of the rider gets most of the publicity and fame when you win a class. But if you think behind that, there's so many things that are happening that gets you there. I'm only on that horse 45 minutes a day on exercising, and then in the ring for the minute or 90 seconds that you're showing, right? But that horse, like Zorro, for instance, she's getting care 24/7 by her groom, by the team manager, by the farrier, by the vet, by the chiropractic. There's so many things involved that when I go into the ring, they are on my shoulders. Like it's responsibility that I'm taking into the ring, you know. So I feel like whenever I do good, I let them all, you know, I made them all happy, and that's really important for me. But when I ride bad or I make a mistake, that's when I get really annoyed, because I know that I let a lot of people down and my horse down, not just myself. Yep. So the day that of Spruce Meadows, I know if I rode this round again, I'll jump a clear round. It's too late then. You know, that's where I was coming from. That I could have jumped a clear round, but I didn't, because I wasn't focused. I wasn't concentrating enough. And there are so many people that were let down. They don't make me feel it, but I feel it. So it has to be that day. Also, one of the really major ones, but that was in the beginning of my international career in 2011. We were in Qatar for the Olympic qualification of 2012 in London. Yep. And we had a chance to qualify another spot for Egypt. Egypt already had a spot in the Olympics, but we had a chance in this Nations Cup to get another place for Egypt. And it was Pepper. And the best result of the Arab riders and from the Nations Cup will get the spot. So if it's an Egyptian rider, Egypt will get a place. Jordan rider, Jordan will get the place. Qatar, Saudi, and so on. So it was obviously 2 rounds, and I was clear in the first round, and Abdel Said was clear in the first round. So 2 Egyptian riders were clear, and none else of the Arab riders were clear. So we have a very good chance in the second round to get another clear. And then in the second round, I had the time fault. I was first to go for the team, and I was second to go in the class, so I didn't get a chance to get a feeling of the time allowed. And I had a time fault, and that got me out of the place and got Egypt out of the place. So that was, I think that was the first time I ever cried after a course.
For a time fault.
And since then, I never had time faults. That was my first time ever, and my last time also. I don't get time faults by nature. So it happened really on the wrong day. And it was quite a devastating moment for me, because obviously the Olympics is one of every rider's dream. But okay, yeah, it happens, and you learn from that and you move on. That's basically the sport.
Well, talking about the Olympics, Egypt is qualified for Tokyo 2021. If it is happening, hopefully it will.
Let's hope. Yeah, let's hope.
It will be hosted. It's first time in almost 6 years, right?
Well, Egypt never qualified as a team as such. We went as a team 60 years ago. Egypt went as a team, but there was not team qualifications. There wasn't a specific qualification for the team. They just went as a team. But this was the first time to have a qualification, and we actually qualify from it to the Olympic Games as a team. So yeah, in 60 years time, Egypt never featured a team in the Olympic Games. So hopefully Tokyo 2020, which is 2021, we're gonna be there and hopefully perform well.
I don't really know the whole, sorry.
No problem.
I really don't know the regulations and how do you qualify for the Olympics. I know that you have this leagues, so I believe you have this South.
Seventh region. It's the 7th region. Yeah.
Leagues. Did it change for you, or do you believe it's a good thing? The new Olympic motto.
You mean to have the individual finals before the team finals?
And yes, because FEI said that they did the new model with only 3 riders.
I understand.
So they can have more countries in it. I'm not sure if Egypt goes in these more countries. I believe not.
Yeah.
But either way, what do you think about the new model? Also about the first individuals, then the teams, and well, you got it.
Yeah. My honest opinion about it, it maybe helped countries to get into the Olympics, but I don't agree with it, because Olympics is top sport. And if you can't qualify for the Olympic Games, then you shouldn't be there. It's as simple as this. We didn't qualify in 2011 for the 2012 as a team, so we didn't deserve to be there. And yes, in my region, you have an extra place now. Instead of, because before it was 1 place, now you get 2 places, right? But at the end of the day, now you're going to have more countries in the Olympic Games, but in my opinion, the level will have to drop Otherwise, you will see not really nice Olympic Games. Because, you know, show jumping is a really difficult sport. You need to have everything right on the day. You have to have a lot of 5-star or a lot of Grand Prix underneath you to get you the experience to be able to jump there. So it's not just a matter of filling more countries to make more flags in the Olympic Games. You know, Olympics is a tough sport. I understand why they did it, but you know, and I know that maybe they didn't have a choice because this is the Olympic Games. New motto is more flags, more people watching, this, that, the other. But from a lover of the sport, I think it will struggle. I might be wrong, but this is my opinion. I think the level will have to drop. Course designers will have a very, very big job on their hands to be able to feature for top sport, top countries as so many Europeans, United States, Canada, and also feature for other countries that aren't able to jump at that level just yet. They may be. Egypt wasn't, like I said, 5-6 years ago, we weren't able as a team to feature there. We were featuring individuals, but not as a team. Now we're ready, so we got the spot and we went there. So I think it will be interesting to watch to see how it will all pan out. Second part of your question is the individual finals before the team finals. Again, it's going to be different, you know, because an Olympic champion, an Olympic individual champion through the years was a champion over 5 rounds. He got him and his horse, jumped one qualifier to the next, went to the individual final on the last day, still had a fresh horse, still had a lot in the tank. So this doesn't happen by coincidence. You know, this is something that you plan for so many years, to have your horse as fit and healthy and so many things to be able to go on the Sunday and jump those last 2 rounds and maybe a jump off and win the Olympic final. So now you jump qualifier, go into the individual finals, you jump 2 rounds. So it's open. It's open for many. It's more open for many riders to win, but not maybe not the best horse rider combination of the whole Olympic Games. That's as simple as I can explain it. You know, that maybe the Olympic champion of Tokyo won't be the best horse rider combination over the whole five rounds. So
Fantastic.
it will be sorry.
Fantastic. That's a really good explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting again to watch. But for me, I'm just chomping on the bit to get there and do my best with my horse and hopefully perform. And like I said, I want to go there, not just to be there. I want to go there and perform well, and hopefully win a medal for Egypt, either individually or as a team. I think we have a really good team now of riders and horses, with very good teams behind them, of people that supports them, and myself included. So yeah, I'm really eager to get there and hopefully perform in the best way possible.
Fantastic. Well, the other thing that's about to change, and I believe we'll see a big difference in the sport, at least on this Olympic. This Olympic for me is going to be a really interesting one. Yeah, because on top of all of that, we will not have more the hind boots as we know it.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to be affecting the sport, and what do you believe is going to change?
Well, if in every I won't say argument, but in those lines, there is obviously the good and the bad. So the back boots are maybe a good thing, but every good thing can be abused one way or another. And when it's abused, other people suffer. That's basically how I see most of the things that happen in life. There's always a good thing or a bad thing, and then the good thing get abused, then it's a bad thing for everybody. So I think that's a little bit what happened with the back boots. I think the riders abused or used it, let's not say abused because it's a big word, used it in the wrong way. Also the stewards thought of it in the wrong way, then the FEI thought of it again in a very negative way. But it's happening, so we will have to adjust, with it, but the sport will change, in my opinion. It will change big time, because if you think about it now, the jump-offs would be, in my opinion, slower. The course designers will really have to adapt because obviously the level of the sport was really high with the back boots. I think it will damp down a bit. And then the course designers again will have to really think. The transition phase will be difficult, if you get what I mean. The beginning of it, from boots to no boots,
Yep.
will be very, very difficult for riders, for course designers, to build the right level without taking too much, with getting the good number of clear rounds, but not getting any clear rounds. So it's gonna be interesting enough. And yeah, from an argument point of view, I am not totally against it. I'm against abusing it. That's
Yep.
If you're asking me my opinion about it, so that would be me.
Yeah, I believe that a lot are paying for what a few done. If you know
That's
what I
it.
mean.
And it's kind of life, but I think you have to negotiate these things in a better way, not just no, then it's a no, or from every hind boot possible to use to nothing at all. There always has to be a slight transition from using hind boots to not using at all. There's always that happy medium that maybe transition it into that, and then from that to none. But from this all the way to none is also a little bit difficult, and I think again the sport will have to acclimatize quite quickly upon that change.
Thinking on that, I know that of course we are not jumping shows at all because it's quarantine time. Everyone's stuck at home.
Yeah, I'm very eager to start anyway.
But don't you believe that knowing that from January on we will not have the hind boots, shouldn't the riders take this time from now until January to slowly transition it, like by themselves, so they start the next year already adapted in the sort of way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. This lockdown phase, I think, is a lot of people are thinking negatively about it, but I don't think riders are thinking negatively about it. I think most of the riders are thinking very positively about it because their good horses are having a break from being from one place to the next. They are staying in one place for a long period of time, which is stress relief for them. They don't have to be on a lorry traveling from Portugal to Spain to Holland to France. They don't have to be on the lorry all the time. And then a lot of the things that we could not do between the shows, as flat work, as gymnastic work and hacking and other basic things that you didn't have the chance to do. In lockdown, you can do whatever you want. The beginning of this, when this happened, Joanne and I were obviously riding some of the younger horses because we didn't have a chance to do that before. And Joanne got on one of the younger horses, which were very green, and she was a bit frustrated. Like, I can't get her to do a flying change. I can't get it. I said, there's no problem. We have loads of time. Just take your time with them. Do your flat work. Come back to basics. And she said, you know what? You're right. I'm not in a pressure to run to a show or I have to make it work to get to the show. I can just take my time. And I think she's done a fantastic job with her younger horses now because they're all looking better. They're working better. Myself as well with my horses. Zoro's having the time of her life. She looks as if she's she's $100 million horse. She looks fantastic. Touch wood, very, very healthy. Amy Ma, also my reserve horse for the Olympics. She's looking really, really good. I've worked a lot on the things that I couldn't work with before. And I think by the end of this, we'll have, that's her there. Well done.
She's really young at this show. She's really young at this show. I'm not sure how old she is.
5. I think she's 5 there. That's a 5. She has a 5-year-old.
She's the one that you jumped on Geneva on last year, didn't you?
That's it, yeah. And I
With
also
the mask.
jumped the mask. Well done. Yes, that's her. She's a homebred. Joanne bred this mare from one of her older international horses by Jetem, and then she's by Jetem Flamenco. And she's a pride for us because, like I said, it's a home breed horse that jumped 160 level very, very successfully. And Gijon, her first 160 class, she was clear out of 80 horses. There was only 5 clears, and she was one of them. And that was her first 160 class. Last show for her was Gothenburg. She was double clear in the big class the first day. She was 1 down in the Gothenburg Grand Prix, which was quite a difficult class. So I think she's also gonna be a top horse, and I think this time is gonna be the making of her as well, because turn back to basics, work on the things that I kind of struggle with in the course, and I have to kind of compensate now.
Yep.
If I work on it now, and I don't use back boots on her anyway, so I'm all sorted for next year.
So good, yeah, absolutely. And have you bred out of zero at all?
No, actually, we always thought about it, because a lot of people are doing, obviously surrogate mothers and things. We didn't really do it, but this year we were thinking maybe to try to steal one embryo from her, and then after the Olympics, she's gonna then return to breeding. That would be the plan. But I don't want the mare done so much for us that it's hard to be that last greedy, and but if it happened, it will happen. Maybe one embryo this year, because she's not showing. She's already on a downtime, so we maybe use her for that this year.
Fantastic. Of course, you have zero. You have IMMA. You have plenty. You have ridden plenty of amazing horses in your life.
That's right.
But there's always that horse on the show that kind of steals your eye. You know what I mean? Like this horse that's like, this one I would love to. It's not, I want to have it for me. But on this one, I would like to have a spin. Think on a rotation. We have back to rotation. Which horse would you like to have on a rotation with you?
Well, I think there's plenty of horses, but horses are horse and a rider combination, really. When you look at a horse and you say, I would really like to sit on this horse, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful on it.
Not at all, of course. I agree with you.
With horses, it's so funny, because one thing this rider do in specific makes that horse shine. But if you give it to another, maybe better rider, but it won't shine as much. So it's a very horses are they always give lessons. That's how I feel about, and that's why I love the sport. Because it just always teaches you and puts you down to earth. You cannot get really a lot of ego in show jumping, because horses always gets you level. So yeah, if you're asking me, everybody would say Explosion. I would say this is a horse that you look at and you say, fantastic, a lot of blood, a lot of scope, and the right type for me, the ones that are eager to go to the jumps and you just try to place them. Also, Clooney's a fantastic horse. Eric Lamaze's Fine Lady is one of the horses that I really love watching how she jumps, because she's a fighter, and I like fighter horses. Most of my horses are mares. If you ever do statistics on my horsey career, the ones that I was most successful with are mares. So I think they fight a little bit more for you if they like you. So yeah, those are the horses that are on the circuit at the moment. That Bianca from Steve Gerdat, also fantastic jumper, very very flashy looking. But yeah, not necessarily that I'd be successful with any of them, and vice versa with them.
I know exactly what you mean. Like I say, a horse I would love to ride. I would love to have a feeling it's Bianca, but I'm 100% sure that I could not do half of what Steve does on top of her.
No, it's a partnership. I always say with horses, if you look at the major results in championships, it's always a horse and rider that have been together for a few years.
Yeah.
Because they build a partnership, they understand each other really well, and they perform then on the top level, and they are successful.
Very good. What's your favorite show, Sameh?
It's a big one for sure. For me, it's Spruce Meadows. As you can tell, obviously, I always love the show. When I go there, it's a special feeling, and you don't get that in a lot of places, because there's so much pride goes into it from the people that work there. As so is Aachen. The same. When I went there, I had that fantastic feeling. Yes, everybody loves the big grass arena and the big jumps and the big crowds, but for me, it's about the small details that makes your body flinch. Makes your body chill, and it's always from what the people put into the show, what the organizers put into the show. I remember in Aachen, for instance, the parade they did on the last day after the Grand Prix, when everybody, all the horses, dressage, show jumpers, they're all into the arena with their handkerchiefs and they're saluting the crowds. it was something really special. I've never been to Aachen. That was my first time, and it was just something really special for me. Spruce Meadows, I love the show. I love the people there. They're very, very proud of what they have. Dublin is a show that I really love. The crowd there makes me jump a 2.20 m wall, which I don't really like doing, but I won the pre-songs there. And to be honest, the day before, I didn't want to even jump in the class, but the crowd there lifts you and makes you do things that you wouldn't think that you can do. Geneva, again, the crowd, the people there that work with the show, there's so much effort go into it. So those shows are special to me because I feel not just it's fantastic show jumping, but the whole vibe about the show is special. And I think that's what makes them very, very special. Also, one of the ones is the playoffs in Prague, but from a different point of view, because I'm there to compete with top 16 riders that have won global Grand Prix.
Yes.
So I got a chance because I won one of the Grand Prix to be there alongside them with their best horses. That was also something very special for me.
Very good. Sameh, I have a few questions still. We are almost down to an hour. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to finish this live because when you got to up to an hour, the Instagram closes the live automatically. So before that happens in the middle of a sentence, I'm going to close it up, open a new one, and then we can finish, okay?
Perfect. No problem.
Very good. Fantastic.
No problem.
See you soon.
See you.